So, Eve said as she drove Claire to school, what was up with the Monica thing? I mean, maybe you ought to watch your back with her. Even more than you already do. She sounded like she really kind of meant it. It took a lot for her to come eat crow like that. Eve shot her a look. One of those looks. Doubly effective coming from a girl wearing rice powder makeup and flawless eyeliner and black cherry lips. In Monica's world, being friends means doing whatever Monica wants. When Monica wants to do it. Somehow, I can't see you as one of her brain-dead backup singers. No, that's not... I didn't say I was going to be her friend, just you asked. Claire crossed her arms and settled back in the bucket seat of Eve's ancient black caddy, shooting for a stubborn look. She's not my friend, okay? You're my friend. So Monica starts bringing the in crowd to hang at your study table. You'll get up and leave? No way. You're too nice. Before you know it, you're tagging along with them. And then you start to actually feel sorry for them. You tell me how Monica's not bad. She's just misunderstood. And before you know it, you're braiding each other's hair and giggling over boy bands. Claire made a retching sound. I wouldn't do that. Please. You like everybody. You even like me. You like Shane. And let's face it, Shane's kind of an idiot. At least right now. Eve's eyes narrowed as she thought about that. And about Shane, I swear, if he doesn't snap out of it, I'm going to punch him in the face. Well, punch him in the face and then run like hell. Claire played that out in her head and nearly laughed. Eve's best possible punch wouldn't do more than surprise Shane, she figured. But she could just picture the wounded look of confusion on his face. What the hell did I do? I'm not popular, she declared. Monica's not my friend. I am not hanging out with her, ever. End of story. Swear? Claire held up her hand. Swear. Huh. Eve didn't sound convinced. Whatever. Look, if we're friends, how about buying me a mocha? Mooch. You're the one with the job. Mid-afternoon, and it was raining, which was kind of rarity. A cold, eerily fall rain that came down in glittering sheets. Claire, like about 90% of the other students, hadn't thought to bring an umbrella, so she sloshed along miserably along the quadrangle, past the empty benches and rain-soaked message boards, towards her chem lab. She loved chem lab. She hated rain. She hated being soaked in the skin, and frankly, living in this part of Texas made it usually not that much of a risk. There was no room in her backpack for anything frivolous, like a raincoat. She worried about her books would get soggy. But the backpack was supposed to be waterproof. You look cold, said a voice from behind her. And then the rain cut off. And she heard the hollow thump of raindrops hitting the thin skin of an umbrella. Claire looked up, blinking water out of her eyes. And she saw she was walking under a golf umbrella big enough for 4 or 5 of her, or one of her, plus the guy holding the umbrella. Because he was huge. Also cute, in that big-boned football player kind of way. It would have made Shane look small. Well, proportioned, though. So the height had to be at least 6'5". And weight just seemed right on him. He had chocolate brown skin and gorgeous brown eyes. And he seemed kind of nice. I'm Jerome, he said. Hey. Hey, she said back, still amazed that somebody who was clearly somebody would stop to hang an umbrella over her head. Thanks. I'm Claire. Hi. She juggled her dripping backpack to her other hand and offered him her right. He took it and shook. It was about 3 times as large, big enough, she bet, to cup most of an entire football. He was wearing the TPU Athletic Department t-shirt. No mystery about his major. Where are you heading, Claire? Chem lab, she said, and pointed at the building, which was about a football field length away on the other side of the quad. He nodded and steered that direction. Look, it's nice of you, but you don't have to. It's no problem. He smiled at her. He had dimples. I hear the science building is nice this time of year. And anything for a friend? But I'm not... Jerome nodded to a group of girls standing huddled together under the awning of the Language Arts building. Pretty girls. In the centre of them was Monica Morell, and she blew Jerome a flirty sort of kiss. Oh, Claire said. That friend. Her estimate of Jerome fell by several dozen notches, hit bottom, and started digging for China. Look, I appreciate it, but I'm not sugar. I won't melt. She veered away and walked fast. Jerome took about 2 long strides and put the umbrella over her again without comment. She glared at him. He lifted an eyebrow. I can play this game all day. Fine. But I don't need favours from Monica. Girl, it's an umbrella, not a Lamborghini, he pointed out. Way too reasonably. I'm not even lending it to you. It's not really that much of a favour. She kept her mouth shut, head down, and walked fast. Jerome stopped at the foot of the science building stairs, and she bounded up and darted under the concrete porch, which was already choked with other students hiding from the rain. There's choked, but it's spelled choked. She looked back down. Jerome smiled and waved, and a bronze or copper bracelet caught her eye. He was protected. Probably a native of Morganville. I'm not her friend. That was not my fault, she complained, defending herself to an Eve who wasn't even there. And then she sneezed, sniffled, and dragged her soggy butt to class. The rain kept up all day and all night, but the next day dawned bright and shiny, with a pale silver sun not quite as fierce as Claire expected. Kind of nice, actually. She'd already showered by the time Eve stumbled into the bathroom, looking more like The Walking Dead than most vampires. Eve mumbled something and ignored Claire as she started up the shower again. Claire finished at the sink and hurried downstairs. She found Michael at the coffee pot, emptying the filter of cold grounds. Deeply weird that he was more of a morning person, as a vampire. Maybe he was just enjoying having a morning again, instead of becoming a floaty ghost by dawn. Eve's up. You better make it so dark the spoon melts. Michael shot her a half smile, still almost lethal enough to stop a girl's heart. Luckily, he knew just how much current to use on his charm. That bad, huh? She thought about it for a second as she took down a bowl of the box of Rice Krispies and found the milk behind the bottles of beer. Contraband from Shane in the fridge. You've seen that movie where the zombies eat people's brains? Night of the Living Dead? The zombies would run if they got a look at her. Malcolm spooned extra coffee into the fresh filter. He looked good, she thought. Strong, tall, confident. He had on a nice blue shirt and some not so ratty blue jeans, and he was wearing shoes. Running shoes, sure, but shoes. Claire stared at his feet. You're going out, she said. Got a job, Michael said. Working at JT's Music over on 3rd Street. 10 to close. Mostly I'll be demoing guitars and selling them, but JT said he'd let me do some private lessons if I wanted. That was so normal. Really normal. And he sounded happy too. Claire bit her lip and tried to organise the explosion of questions in her brain. What about the sun? She asked, because that seemed to be the first hurdle. They issued me a car, Michael said. It's in the garage, fully sun-proofed, and there's underground parking at JT's. There is most places. Issued? Who issued you a car? He shot her a "you're not stupid" look. The town? Amelie? He didn't answer directly as he slid the filter compartment shut and turned on the brew switch. The machine began wheezing and trickling into the pot. They tell me it's standard procedure, he said, for new vampires. Not that there have been any for 50 years, right? He shrugged. It was obvious that she was making him uncomfortable with the questions, but Claire couldn't help herself. Did you ever find out why? Why they haven't been in so long? I don't think it's a great idea to be too curious right now. She understood that, and understood he meant it for her as well. But she couldn't stop asking questions, somehow. Michael, did they get you the job too? No, I know JT. I got the job all by myself. They offered. He stopped, clearly thinking he'd already said too much. Claire finished it out, guessing. They offer you some kind of job in the vampire community, right? Or, oh god, or they offered to make you a protector? Not right off the bat, he said, still staring at the coffee maker. You have to work up to that. So they say. Michael, owning people, skimming off their wages like some mafia don. She tried not to let him see how sick the idea made her feel, that he'd ever really considered doing it. His eyes suddenly cut towards her as if he'd read her mind. I didn't do it. I found the job at JT's, Claire, Michael said, and suddenly moved towards her. She flinched, and he took a deep breath and held out his hand in clear apology. Sorry. I forget sometimes. It's hard, okay? Learning how to move around people when it can go so much faster. But I don't want to hurt you, Claire. No way. Shane thinks. Light caught and flared in Michael's eyes, eerie and frightening, and then he blinked and it was gone. He obviously made a real effort to keep his voice quiet. Shane's wrong. he said. I'm not changing, Claire. I'm still your friend. I look after you. All of you. Even Shane. She didn't answer him. Truthfully, as much as she liked him and it verged on love, she felt something different about him today. Something complicated and agitated and strange. Was he hungry? He was staring at her. No, he was staring at the skin of her neck, wasn't he? Claire put a hand to it, involuntary, but irresistible. And Michael got a very slight pink flush in his pale cheeks and looked away. I wouldn't, he said in a far different tone than before. It almost sounded scared to her. I wouldn't, Claire. You have to believe me, but this is hard. It's so hard. She did believe him, most because she could hear all the heartbreak and sorrow in his voice. She took a breath, stepped forward, and hugged him. He was tall. Top of her head only brushed his chin. His arms felt strong and comforting, and she told herself that he wasn't warm because it was chilly in the kitchen. It wasn't really true, but that helped. I wouldn't hurt you, he murmured, but I've got to admit, I want to. I spent all my life hating vampires, and now look at me. You have to, Claire said. You didn't have a choice. She felt his sigh go through both of them. Not true, he said. Shane's right. I did have a choice, but this is the choice I made, and now I have to live with it. He let go when she stepped back. Neither of them knew what to say, so Claire busied herself by opening kitchen cabinets to get down the 4 mismatched cups they used in the morning. Michael's was plain chunky stoneware, oversized like a dinner cup on steroids. His was a petite black thing with a yawning cartoon vampire on it. Shane's had a happy face with a bloody bullet hole in the centre of his forehead. Claire had taken one with Goofy and Mickey on it. How's school? Michael asked. Neutral subjects. He didn't want to talk it out. He wanted to keep it inside. She wasn't too surprised. Michael had always been too self-contained for his own good, as far as she could tell. Too easy, she sighed, and poured coffee. They were sitting down and sipping from their mugs when the kitchen door opened, and Shane, wearing pyjama bottoms and a ratty old faded t-shirt, came into the kitchen. He avoided Michael, picked up his cup off the counter, and filled it to the brim. He left without a word. Michael watched him go, face set and hard, and Claire felt the need to apologise. He's just... I know, Michael said. Believe me, I know exactly how Shane is. It doesn't mean I have to like it right now. I really need to stop being the glass goodwill ambassador, Claire thought. But she knew she'd keep on doing it. Somebody had to, after all. So, after she'd finished her coffee, she went to talk to Shane. Shane's door was unlocked and slightly open. Claire pushed it and stepped inside, then stopped short. All her carefully prepared speeches flew right out of her head, because Shane was getting dressed. The sight of him short-circuited her thought processes, and completely grounded her better judgment. He'd already hauled on his blue jeans, and his back was to her. No shirt yet. She was spellbound by the ripples of muscles on his back, the gorgeous smoothness of his skin, the way his shaggy hair brushed on the tops of his shoulders, and begged to be smoothed back. The second of the zipper being pulled up snapped her back to sanity. She stepped hastily back, out into the hall, and pulled the door almost shut, then knocked. What? It wasn't a friendly response. It's me, she said. Can I come in? She heard something halfway between a grunt and a sigh, and opened the door to find him dragging a dark grey, form-fitting shirt over his head. It looked very good on him. Not as good as the no-shirt thing, but she was trying hard not to think about that. It made her warm and fluttery inside. Is that a new shirt? She asked, desperate to get her mind off the vivid mental pictures that kept bubbling up. That got another infinite grunt. It looks nice. Shane gave her an iconic look. We're talking clothes now? Wait, let me get my Fashion for Dummies book. Never mind. About Michael. Stop. Shane stepped back forward and kissed her on the forehead. I know you don't want me ripping him, but I can't help it. Give me some time, okay? I need to figure some things out. Claire tipped her head back, and this time he found her lips. It was, she thought, supposed to be a fast and sweet little kiss, but somehow it slowed down, got warmer and deeper. His lips were damp and soft as silk, and that was such a contrast to the hard lines in his body pressed against her, the strength of his hands sliding around her waist and pulling her even closer. She heard him growl low in his throat, a wild and hungry sound that made her go weak and faint. He broke the kiss and leaned against her, breathing hard. Good morning to you too. Man, I just can't stay mad at you to do that. Do what? She asked innocently. She didn't feel innocent. She also didn't feel 16, nearly 17, not at all. Shane always made her feel older, much older, ready for anything. It was a good thing Shane wasn't as dumb as her hormones seemed to be. Unless you want to stay at home and cut class, we don't really have time to talk about it, he said, and waggled his eyebrows. So, want to cut class and make out? She socked him on the arm. No, such a strange girl. Ow. He said in the way that meant he hadn't felt it all. You riding with Eve? When she passed the snarling cannibal phase? Yeah. Another 2 cups of coffee, probably. You sure you don't want a bodyguard? He meant it. Shane didn't have a job. She wasn't really sure he could get one, after what his dad had been up to in Morganville recently. Probably better kept in low profile for a while. The fewer vampires and vampire loyalists he came in contact with right now, the better. He was still thought of as an unindicated co-conspirator to his dad's revenge rampage, and even though the mayor had officially signed his pardon, nobody had liked much of it. Accidents happened. I don't need a bodyguard, Clay said. Nobody's out to get me. Even Monica's got all her friends making with me now. That earned her a too-sharp look, which didn't go well with his reddened, kissable lips. Yeah? Why is that? She shrugged and avoided his eyes. I don't know. He tipped her chin up with her one finger. So, are we at the lying part of the relationship already? Usually that comes after the exciting, hot and sexy honeymoon period. She stuck out her tongue at him, and he leant forward, to her honour, and licked it. You! Then don't stick it out, Shane smiled. If you're going to hang out in my room and tempt me, there's a penalty. 1 item of clothing per minute comes off. Perv. He points to himself. Male and 18. What's your point? You are, so say you've got any pleated miniskirts and knee socks. I really get off on. She squealed and dodged his grabby hands, then checked her watch. Oh crap, I really have to go. I'm sorry. Look, you're okay, right? The smile disappeared, leaving only a trace in his dark, secretive eyes. Yeah, Shane said. I'll be okay. Watch your back, Claire. You too. Claire started for the door, and she heard his footsteps behind her and turned. He moved her back to the wall, tipped up her chin, and kissed her so thoroughly that she felt her head fill with light and her knees turn to rubber. When she could breathe again, he pulled back to give her just an inch or so of space between their lips and gasped. Was that a goodbye? That was a come home soon, he said, and pushed off from the wall. Seriously, Claire, watch yourself. I worry. I know, she said and smiled. Her knees were still weak, and the chorusing light in her head just didn't seem to be fading. Best kiss so far, by the way. Her eyebrows rose. His eyebrows rose. You're keeping score? Hey, you raised the bar. I don't grade on a curve. She left him, reluctantly, to grab her backpack to see if Eve was in the mood to eat brains, or to give her a ride to school.
Hello everyone, thank you for listening to the audio file or audio reading I've done of a Rachel Kane book. I'm putting this in there, so if you want to skip past this bit and move on to the next video, that's fine by me. This is just like a cancer plug, because I want to do this, as well as also I have to do this, because the thing you've just listened to is illegal for me to do without having a charity case behind it, which I feel I don't want it to be like a situation like, oh, I'm only doing this for the sake of cancer, which I'm actually doing this for the sake of cancer, but I did cancel this series a long time ago. It came to my recent attention that I should redo this in a better format, and I feel like now is a perfect opportunity to actually restart this in the worst possible way. Back in 1st of November, back in 2020, Rachel Kane sadly passed away to a rare bone cancer called sarcoma. Now, in the description below is going to be a link that you can. It's going to be a link so you can support the research into helping people survive and defeat sarcoma bone cancer and soft tissue cancer cells and all that stuff. So that's just going to be in the description right there down below. It is in pounds for those American ones, but obviously PayPal and all the research still goes to the same thing, because once it's been cured, once they found a cure for it or found an easier solution for it and stuff like that, it does get sent around all around the world, because everyone works on the same thing all over the world. It's just that this charity is based in UK. I live in the UK, so it still goes to the same goal to beat sarcoma for a long time, and I feel like this is the best opportunity to work with it for any Rachel King books that we do during the Morganville series or any future series that we do. Obviously, this is even going to be in the future series if we do them. So any book that we do by Rachel Kane is going to have this at the end, just to plug a little bit of a cancer support for people with sarcoma, because it is a rare cancer, and there is not a very good survival rate. So just putting that in there to help people or to support the issues that are out there, because I'm not going to get any money from these videos at all, even in like the present one. I'm not getting any money of this recording, or in the future, if possibly I do. But this is not what I'm about. This is all about for what Rachel Kane succumbed to in the end. So hopefully that as a team together we can beat sarcoma and end one of the cancers that are killing people, because no one likes that. But anyway, have a good day.